All right, everyone. First of all, I want to thank you all for joining our meeting today and on our topics here of benefits of connecting our ERP to our manufacturing quality software. So a couple quick housekeeping items as we begin our meeting. Everyone is on mute, as you've probably already noticed. We do have quite a few folks and customers and potential customers that are joining us today. So in order to keep the presentation flowing, we do have folks on mute. That, however, does not mean we don't want this to be an interactive meeting. So we do ask, and please do put any questions you have in the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and we'll do our best to answer everybody's questions as we're going through the presentation. But even at the end, if we do have additional questions, we'll make sure we try to address all of those in the meeting here today. Finally, this is being recorded, so don't feel you have to feverishly write down any of the notes or anything you have on this. We will be sending this recording out after the meeting, so sit back, relax, and enjoy kind of the topics we're going to talk about here today. As a quick way of introduction, my name is Scott Boeing. I'll be doing part of the presentation, really the introduction today. I am the VP of our customer success team here at HiQA, and work with the team really and all of our existing customers to, as in the title, make sure they are successful. Along those lines, this is a bit of a unique webinar for us, as we have probably half and half as far as existing customers that are already using HiQA, but then we also have prospective customers as well that are joining us. So we'll try and do our best to kind of address both angles in this presentation. With me today, I do have Chris Mendocino. Chris is our VP of Product. So Chris will be walking through and talking, at a high level and then getting into detail of really why we want to interact and interface with ERP and our quality manufacturing software as well. So thank you for joining, Chris. A few topics today that we're going to go through. As mentioned, we do have some prospective customers, I should say, that are joining us today. So we really want to take a quick look into who HiQA is and really everything that we do. Then we'll get into, the topic at hand of, why should we integrate our ERP and manufacturing quality, or at least why we feel it. And again, want to walk you through a couple of our thoughts there. Then we'll get into our ERP integration and kind of what HiQA has done to really standardize that and work through and work with our customers to make sure that that's not only available, but supported to pull that data back and forth from the ERP into HiQA as well. So that being said, about HiQA, obviously we are a proven solution of manufacturing quality, and really we take it from top end of all OEMs down through their supply chain or from the other way. So we're able to work with, if you are a supplier, and allow you to then pass information digitally back up to your OEM as well, but really kind of run the gamut from top down or bottom up as well. Our goal is to automate really that mundane task of the quality and quality documentation and automate that process, but also keep it digital in that digital thread. And along those lines, and really the topic at hand today is to ensure not only compliance, but also the integrate seamlessly with all of your systems internally as well. And our goal too is really to allow you to deliver your parts 100% on time, on budget, and on quality. But as a 10,000 foot view about HiQA as well, ultimately, we were founded in 2015. We roughly have about 1,500 customers, and that really does span the globe. We're on 5 continents, and those customers run the gamut of OEMs, as I mentioned before, but also through their supply chain as well. A big portion of what we do really touches, as you see, in kind of a little bit small, but under the supported supply chain manufacturers. We go from aerospace defense, automotive, medical, and then overall manufacturing and machinery that touches a lot of these different OEMs. But again, really anything that requires that heavy inspection, high quality parts, and then the documentation that goes along with it is really what we're going to do and help you out with here at HiQA. Next slide, please. So again, a brief overview of what we offer in our solutions. So at HiQA, we really strive to be an all-in-one database-driven solution, and we are. So whether we're starting up front, and I'm going to take a guide around the wheel here real quick. I know it's a little bit small, but when we start in the upper right-hand quadrant of our part and job planning, we're able to start at HiQA by really doing an auto ballooning function, and whether we're taking a 2D print or 3D MBD, and able to pull that information into HiQA and put that into our database, extract that GD&T information, and really do all the job planning and sampling, and get that ready to be inspected out on the shop floor. But once we're done with the planning, we're able to put that into production and really get into collecting data, whether it's coming off of our CMM or through our browser-based manual data collection applications that we can put on the shop floor. We're able to pull that data back into the database again, and then really kind of turn that into the reporting side of it as well. Whether we're doing just a standard first article, or we're getting into some more exotic PPAP style submission paperwork, we're able to do that. Again, the idea of this is to keep this all digital, all in one database, and able to manage that through digital workflows, digital signatures on the end reporting, and be able to get that to your suppliers, your OEMs, whatever we need to, going up, coming down. And then finally, in the top left, we're able to now tie everything in throughout your entire supply chain. So if we're an OEM and we want to manage that part and job planning and then pass those requirements down to our suppliers, we're able to do so digitally. And then on the back end, if we are a supplier, it allows us to very easily upload, get the information we need from our OEM, and then put the data back in, digitally transfer that, and keep everything all tied together in one system. So again, as a whole, our job, keep it digital, keep it one thread, and be able to pass that up and down throughout our supply chain. With that being said, we'll kind of not only do that within HiQA, but our topic here today is to not only talk about that, but also how that relates to other systems that you're using and being able to integrate all of that as well. So with that, I'll pass it over to Chris Mendocino, and we'll start talking about that ERP integrations.
Great. Thanks, Scott.
Mm-hmm.
You can hear me okay?
Gotcha. Yeah.
All right, cool. Just want to check. All right, so yeah, we want to talk about where this fits. So yeah, we felt it was important to kind of go through that initial concept of like, what is HiQA, especially since we do have prospects on the call today that may not be as familiar with what we do. But yeah, managing all of that, as Scott mentioned, from planning, data collection, all of your reporting, it's really like the engineering side of manufacturing quality management and so on. So there's that big question though of like, if we're talking about integrations, one of the primary integrations that we do is ERP integration. Now, we do have other types of connectors too that we're not really going to get into much, but just for, honorable mentions, if you will. We do also connect with gauge management software, as well as some measurement platforms. So we've got like a Polyworks connection that was just recently announced as well. So there's some things like that we do. But today we're focusing on kind of the ERP connectivity scenario. Okay, so the first big question is, why would you even want to connect your ERP with a system like ours and what we do? So this first point here of streamlining the digital thread, the concept here is the way that you're managing inspection plans, you're performing data collection activities in our system, you're generating all of your reports and your document packages. All of that's built and stored and managed very hierarchically in our system. It's all per part record, operations within the parts, and then you have jobs that you cut against those parts. And that sounds kind of ERP-ish, right? And we're certainly not an ERP system. There's no ambitions to even ever go in that direction, right? Nobody, we want to stay in the quality lane here. But you're also recognizing that if you have a system like that, there are redundancies in the hierarchy of information that you're storing between those systems. It's no different than having an ERP and an MES system or something. You often want to connect those to mitigate any kind of like redundant data entry. And so that's kind of what we're talking about here is you're streamlining what we call the digital thread. You're keeping all of your information cohesive. You're minimizing any kind of redundant data entry that might happen that you may need to do between the systems. You're keeping them all connected so it functions as one sort of cohesive business brain helping you manage your organization and the data that you have. Okay. This is also driving collaboration between the different teams and such within your organization. So you have manufacturing teams, design engineering teams, you have quality teams, you have inspectors, you have all these different teams, and they're all logging in kind of through multiple systems potentially. Even the inspectors on the shop floor may have to like clock in through an MES system or an ERP system or something, but they may want to perform their inspections and stuff in our application, right? They want to pull up their inspection plan. So having a tight connection or integration between those two systems makes that much more seamless. You want it to feel like one environment. Okay, so that's kind of what we're talking about and why we would want to do that. So again, I guess I got a little ahead of myself there. But what is the relationship between ERP and our system? So as I mentioned, ERP is your business and part planning kind of system. You're doing your estimating, your quoting, your part definition of like what are your bill of materials. You're doing your purchase order management, all that kind of stuff in there. That's really your enterprise resource planning. Go figure. And then HQA is your manufacturing quality planning and execution system, right? We're dealing with the development of those inspection plans at a detailed level down to the actual data collection. But again, all that data has got to be retained hierarchically. Otherwise, it's not particularly helpful, okay? That is one of the, a pretty substantial strategic advantage with us over other like whether it's ballooning applications or data collection applications or just SBC software. There's a lot of standalone systems that do elements of what we do, but we do all of that kind of in one platform and then keep all of it interconnected through that hierarchy of data, kind of like an ERP system manages information that way. Okay, so ERP systems would kind of would be the initial input for something like part numbers, operations, jobs, and lots, and so on. But then our system would kind of key off of that, okay? Kind of bringing in part records, operations, jobs, so that you can develop all the inspection plans and criteria and stuff according to that, okay? All right, so there's questions then about like, well, how do our integrations work from a technological perspective? And so this is something we're extremely proud of. We put a lot of thought into this. So let's do just real smidge of a history lesson here of like how typical systems would integrate, and how we used to integrate years ago was through RESTful APIs. Okay. And we still have a full RESTful API for any company that wants to build some sort of custom integration or custom logic and augment our system, right? So that's something that we offer as a tool. But really, what we used to do is we'd say, we're not in the business of building custom off-the-shelf solutions. So yes, you can take our API. We'll do some, we'll educate your teams on how to work with it and so on. But really, ultimately, you were kind of responsible for, as the end customer, for building those integrations. And that required you to have kind of some programming resources and such. And it required quite a bit of development time because you're building applications and stuff and middleware logic. That's the previous world. That's not the world that we're promoting today, right? So that's really helpful when you do need to build custom applications and there's, not really an off-the-shelf tailored option for it. So that's still wildly helpful that we have RESTful APIs. Okay, but when it comes to integrating with ERP systems, there's kind of standard logic that we tracked over time of typical functions that people want to establish and perform for sharing data between the two systems. So we've built this whole ecosystem that we call HQA Connect, okay, up here. HQA Connect is a platform. It is a systems integration platform that lets us script business logic that's recyclable. Okay, so we're able to rapidly, because a lot of this comes down to scalability. We're able to build a platform where we can rapidly develop connectors to virtually anything that fits the business logic that we've established. And so when it comes to, there's only a couple of different ways that people want to share parts. People want to control their job dispatching and so on. So there's only so many scenarios for that, really. So we have these standard off-the-shelf plug-and-play integrations. We can already connect to most ERP systems on the market, and we'll see a list of what that is pretty shortly here. Each connector is built on industry best practices and standards, minimal setup time, and seamlessly exchange data between HQA and your ERP systems, right? Okay, let's talk real quick about security, and then we're going to get into actually taking a look at what some of that business logic looks like for exchanging between the two systems here. So this is kind of like an honorable mention again here, HTTPS and SSL. That's kind of a given, but we'll put it there. There is full Active Directory integration here as well with user permissions and everything. The reason for that may seem a little bit odd on like an integration when you're talking about security and stuff, but you'll see shortly here that our integrations aren't just like a behind the scenes, like fully automated sync. That's not exactly what you're looking for all the time. There's some decision making that you do want to have when you're syncing records between your ERP system and our system. And so we have an entire interface that lets you actually pull and manage your data between the two systems. And so you'll see that in just a minute here. And then we have customizable logic available for ITAR data handling. There's a few benefits there. Really just depends on what your use cases are and what you're trying to work with. Okay. All right, so let's talk about the general flow here. So workflow to synchronize part and job data. Typically, you're building part records inside of your ERP system, right? And you've done all of your kind of estimating and cost analysis and so on, kind of breakdown, and you built out your operations. So we can leverage that effort that was put in up front in the ERP, and we can then pull that same part record into our system. So basically, all we're syncing is the part number, name, maybe some other metadata that we might be tracking about the part. If the ERP system has access to the drawing, we can pull the drawing in automatically, and we can auto balloon the drawing or model, either one, so that when your quality engineers first open up our application, they open up that part, it can already be ballooned, already have like a rough bill of characteristics, and then you're going through and refining instead of having to go through those introductory steps, right? So it's really a way to get that part record kickstarted. Now, that has benefit. It keeps the systems integrated from a business logic perspective. It makes sure that you don't accidentally, like fat finger the part number when you're putting it in, and then you can't find it later. So there's some benefit there. But the real benefit in the scalability of these integrations is in the job creation, because the part is the one-time kind of initial setup of the definition of how you build your inspection plans and such. But then you may have like 1,000 parts or 3,000 parts or something like that, individual part numbers, but you're going to have tens of thousands of jobs that you pump out every year. I guess it depends on your business, and you may have long run contract jobs or whatever, but most of the companies that we work with, most of the companies in the market are really generating a significant volume of jobs, especially when you consider like a job to part ratio. So that's where the real scalability comes into play, is the system. As you generate jobs in your ERP, you can have those jobs generated in high QA. You can either do that as like, pull up a menu and say, yes, I want to push this to high QA and have it be a manual trigger. Or there's some scenarios where we can even fully automate it so that you just set a flag in your ERP system and you say, this job is ready to go, right? So what that's doing is it can actually generate the job. It'll look at the inspection plan and generate all the sampling requirements and everything off of the quantities for the order quantities for the job. And it just generates all that content for you, and it's ready to go and accessible by your inspectors on the shop floor. It's a huge amount of automation that we're able to apply due to the depth of the inspection planning that our customers are able to do in our system. Okay, cool. All right, so this is, there's a couple screenshots I want to take you through, and just to give you an idea of what that user interface side looks like. So here you can see that this is accessible through a browser. It's a fully browser-based kind of middleware application. And there's the navigation menu over here. There's really three different sides to this. There's import plans, import operations, and import jobs. So there's three different types of records that you're typically like managing between the systems. But what this is doing is we're currently on the import plans page, and we're saying these are all of the part numbers that you have within your ERP system. Okay. And you can even do that. This one's not populated in this screenshot, but you can even have that broken down by routings too. You can have a row for each routing. So if you had a part number that had 3 different routings, you can sync independent ones into our system and build all the inspection plans around those routings. Okay. So over here, this one is importing operations. And, we can set certain flags in the system, and there's filtering to be able to see, show me part numbers where I haven't synced operations in yet, show me the ones that I have, or show me ones that, well, I guess those are the 2 options. I either have or haven't. So, and then here, this is the jobs importing, right? So this is kind of your menu of, okay, show me all of my active jobs in the ERP and let me pull those into my, into HighQA and just dispatch them automatically. There's a drop down here because there's certain decisions that you might want to make about the nature of how you want that job to sync. That all comes kind of in the training and implementation phase of understanding your business and how you guys work. We've identified a few different scenarios and so on, and kind of accounted for that in the business logic of these applications. Okay, cool. So just to give you a little bit of a taste of how that works. Okay, let's talk about what we have. So like I said, this is a little bit of a newer direction that we went in as a company, just recently building this new platform for highly scalable integration and delivering off-the-shelf solutions. So you can even see the title of the slide, ERP connectors built in 2024. So we started this project really just at the end of 23. All of the connectors in this list, this is what we have off the shelf. All of these came out in the last year. Okay. That's a huge amount of effort we were able to do with a fairly small team. I'm pretty impressed with it. But yeah, we targeted kind of some of the main connectors that we've seen, or sorry, the main ERP systems we've seen in the market. SAP was a big one for enterprise organizations, but these top 4 here, probably by our estimations, it covers about 80% of what we see in the market. And then there's some other ones down here that we've started getting into, especially when you're talking about MKG. That's a huge one in certain European countries and such. I don't know exactly who we have on the call here, but yeah, so something important to understand here is what we built is a platform for connectivity. And so I mentioned this early on, but I want to drive this home a little bit now that you're seeing this list of these are off-the-shelf connectors that we have that are already established, ready to go. I mentioned these enterprise ones here because enterprise ERP connectivity is a little different. It's basically impossible to build like off-the-shelf plug and play. That's not a possibility because enterprise ERP systems are highly configurable and everybody's kind of got their own flavor of business logic and what they do. So what we have though is sort of the 80% groundwork put in place so that we're only doing about 20% every time we connect your SAP, Oracle, JD Edwards systems into ours, and we connect them up. And we also have best practices and standard like kind of process flows that we walk you through for examples of how other companies have done this. So we really take kind of a consultative approach to these projects and implementations. Okay.
And Chris, just to real quickly interrupt, a couple questions, and both of them asking about the same ERP of potentially doing an integration with ProShop. And again, kind of talking about on the same vein of obviously if we're able to get to the data and connect with that on the back end and pull that into HighQA, we're willing to have that discussion. Not hasn't happened yet, but certainly open to that discussion as well.
Yeah, certainly. There's some discussions that we're having with ProShop right now. We've had a long relationship with ProShop. We've had certain use cases that we've built, kind of file-based exchange integrations with them. And we are talking about bringing that to the next level. They recently, my information's a little bit dated, so I'm a little hesitant to say explicitly. So I might be a little off or a little bit dated, but I know that they were working on getting their API up to speed to support some of these integration capabilities with
Yep.
any system, right?
Yep.
And so that's they've just recently kind of gotten there, and so we're having those discussions with them. So
Thank you.
no, good question though. I flirted with the idea of like I kind of went back and forth with it. I was like, do I put ProShop in the list? We kind of have some integrations with them. I wasn't sure, but there we go. Okay, so a big takeaway I wanted to have here is again, because I don't know exactly what everybody here on the call has. If you guys all have these particular ones, that's great. But even if you have something that's not on the list here, major takeaway to have from this is even if you have something we've never seen before, because of the way our platform, our integration platform is built, 80-90% of the code is already written for the integration that you want. And we just basically spin it off and make a new connector application, and we just tie it to the endpoints of your ERP application, and then we're done. Now we've got a new connector, we put it in our catalog, and it's good to go. That process of like meeting with you, kind of getting access to an environment and testing it all out and certifying it, like that process takes about 2 to 3 weeks, give or take. That's kind of a rough ballpark estimate, but it's not like a huge, crazy multi-month project or anything like that. Even the projects that we do with SAP are, you know, you know, 4 to 6 weeks or so, and that's for like a giant enterprise grade ERP system. So, yeah, we're pretty proud of the tools that we've been able to build and the team that we've built that builds them, and our capabilities for developing state-of-the-art technology and the experience that we've collected on like the business logic and the use cases and so on that we're able to kind of guide you guys through. So, all right. In short, wrapping up here. So manufacturing quality and ERP software can work together if you haven't gotten that already. Software integration drives digital transformation, right? So being able to transform your business, make sure that you have deeply connected systems that you're using to drive your day-to-day processes and such. We don't want redundancy of data entry. We don't want typos between systems or differentiation between them. We want one cohesive digital thread through the whole business, right? High QA can be your product integration guide. Again, due to the experience and some of the implementation strategies we can share with you guys and help you get moving. We're not just like throwing a product catalog at you and saying, here, go figure it out. We're here to help make sure that you guys are wildly successful with all of our tools. Okay. Awesome. So, oh, we have another summary side. See. We're coming up on here. I want to make sure we leave some time for questions. See if there's anything significant here. Okay. Yeah, so let's move on to questions if there were any in here.
Yep, and there was one, and I don't know if we touched base much on it, but ultimately we talked a lot about pulling data from the ERP into high QA. Is the connector a two-way street as well? Can we send data back from high QA, into an ERP, and kind of what does that look like as well?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So that scenario comes up more so in like the enterprise ERP world, I would say. In mid-size ERP systems like JobBoss or Epicor or Global Shop, any of those, there's they're very good at part planning and so on, and creating orders and stuff like that. But they don't really have a place to put some of like the actuals. So like the actual inspection results data, their database just isn't structured for that sort of information. So typically we don't do like a two-way street when it comes to mid-size ERPs. But when you're talking enterprise ERPs like SAP, Oracle, JD Edwards, they do have some quality modules. So what we've seen happen is If you are part of a larger organization that's like multi-site global kind of organization, there's like standard modes of operation or standard systems that you have to operate a certain way. A lot of times it takes a pretty significant amount of it takes time. It's a larger project to get that implemented across multiple sites, and we do that with companies all the time. But in the interim, a lot of times it makes sense while you're starting to roll out high QA to multiple facilities. Not everybody has access to the inspection results data and such because they don't have access to high QA yet. And so that's where we've done the two-way street at times, is getting the inspection results data or the copies of the documents and the reports and such posted against the orders in the ERP system. So that way you've got all the data in one place, and anybody across the multi-site organization can still log into SAP or Oracle or whatever and get to that information easily, if in your business processes can kind of keep moving forward and not be interrupted as you're going through a high QA implementation. So that's kind of the most common use case for a two-way street exchange like that.
Thank you. Another question from Jessica about which ERPs do we support integration for? Again, there'll be when we send the video out, Jessica, there's a list that we had pulled up, the ones that we currently got, but ultimately, if you want to reach out with what ERP you're using, we can certainly, Chris brought it back up, thank you, but not limited to these as well. So certainly open to integrating with typically whatever you have. So,
yep.
Let's see, another question from Matthew. More on, how does the information, how do we decide when to send, let's say, part information over to high QA? He doesn't want maybe his part planner deciding which parts go to high QA. How do we pick and choose and flag them to make sure that flows over the way they want it to do?
Yeah, good question. So there's a couple different philosophies on that. And that really, I mean, we would come up with some sort of decision on what works best for you guys during some sort of an implementation that we do. And that's where I brought up that consultative approach. But just to throw out a couple of typical approaches. So it depends on the ERP system and what its capabilities are. But some ERPs like Epicor has the ability to do full-fledged like field level customizations on your records. Like you could build custom checkboxes or drop down fields or buttons or whatever into the part record or job record or whatever. So you can have the planner actually like push a button says, get that data into high QA. That's probably the coolest way to do it, I would say. But there's, we also have those interfaces, like I mentioned, it's that application, it's that window into the ERP system, and then you decide kind of what gets synced in. Your planners can use that if they're kind of the decision makers on when to push data, or your engineers can use it because maybe you have another system that's kind of queuing things up for them, saying, hey, I need you to make an inspection plan for this part and this part and this part, and they just pull up HQA Connect. They get the window into the ERP and they say, boom, pull this out. So there's a few different ways to do it. It's just about coming up with some sort of like a standard operating procedure and tailoring the business logic to what's going to work for you guys in your flow.
Yeah. And Matthew followed up with they use Sightline is the ERP they're using.
Sightline's a highly configurable system. I've seen some really heavily customized Sightline instances. So.
Yep, and kind of another question, not from the same person, but also an Infor Sightline user asking about they're potentially looking at implementing their QCS module in Sightline, and their biggest concern is entering manual dimensions into that. Can the inspection report from IQA be directly uploaded into QCS as part of this?
Yeah, so again, the biggest hurdle in that is just the potentially limited capabilities of the ERP. So I say that somewhat cautiously, I guess, but also with enough experience to know what I'm saying, is ERP systems typically do not have the robustness that we do for inspection plan details and depth, or the inspection data collection tools that we have. Typically, I mean, there's a couple of exceptions out there, but not too many. And so again, that comes down to like, if you're in a position where as an organization, you really have some sort of mandate to use the inspection forms or data collection tools that are occurring in your ERP, and you have to get the plans in there. We can do that with basically anything. It's just a matter of is there a place to put the data on the ERP side of it, right? But I would definitely encourage you to take a look at our data collection tools because it's really all just streamlined. Our system is really built and optimized to have that flow. We know how to utilize and leverage our data that you end up building in our system. Well, it's your data that you built in our system, but
Another question on the two-way street. What about non-conformance information and tied to that? But I know that's a use case that we've talked about a bunch with our customers that, yeah, that non-conformance can be flagged, obviously using our data collection tools on the shop floor. And then, once we define that, being able to throw that over into your ERP is definitely something we've discussed and worked with some customers, I believe, on already. Kind of a follow up on the same previous question as far as is it possible for non-enterprise ERP to access inspection data stored in IQA? The goal is to not manually transfer this file into ERP. So I think kind of a similar type of question, and I know we've talked about that already.
Yeah,
so.
Maybe a way to say that more succinctly is we can push and pull basically anything that we have.
Yeah, yeah.
The only question is, what does your ERP have capabilities of storing? And what makes the most sense from a business perspective? You don't want like a bunch of redundancy in your information systems. You don't want multiple systems holding all like perfectly redundant data. That actually breaks down certain ISO standards even. ISO says you want one system of record for any category of information, right? And so there's those kind of considerations. But as far as like technological capabilities, we can push and pull just about anything that you'd want out of our system or into.
So, and that was the last question. But I'll take that back. Oh, thank you, Shane. This was not seeded. I swear. Shane just put in there that we've been using a connector with Global Shop for several months. It's been a great addition to their system. So awesome. Thanks, Shane, for that comment. And yeah, this has been, yeah, good way to wrap up. Indeed. So one more from Matthew.
Okay.
Once the data is uploaded to the ERP, does the buyer have access to the files HiQA created in order to send it to the vendors? We also use PDM system to store our files. So does the ERP only do that, or is it IQA and ERP?
I think I know what he's asking.
Okay.
Sorry, Matthew, you're probably scrambling to sneak that question in there a little bit. Yeah. Okay, twofold. One, however the data gets in, there was some question about like, is your buyer able to see that data? I'm not exactly sure how to answer that, or how you maybe give access through your ERP somehow so your buyer can see certain information. I'm not sure exactly what you were getting at there. Scott, what was the second half of that? I just need a quick reminder. Oh no, it's under answered, I think.
Yeah, I just moved it.
Oh, okay, I got it.
We also use PDM. Yeah.
Yeah, with regard to the question about PDM, he was saying they use a PDM system to store files and such. Yeah, we can certainly do like multi-system integrations that are all happening simultaneously, right? You don't just have, you don't have to pick like one system that you're going to integrate to. So yeah, we can be integrating to the ERP. A lot of times that makes the most sense for like part and job record information. But if you want to store like documents and reports and such, often a separate, like a PDM or PLM or something like that, right? We can certainly facilitate those. I believe we're actually about to do, we're in the middle of a Windchill integration right now. That's a pretty popular PLM system that's out there. But again, because of the tools that we built, it's basically like, okay, we'll work with you to determine the business logic of how is data going to be synced back and forth, and we have the tools in place to really to get that done. So,
standing. And that was the last question. So thank you all for the questions. That was great back and forth. But if you do have additional questions, whether you're an existing customer, please do reach out to me directly or a prospective customer. And again, obviously, we spent very little time talking about our solution outside of the connector today, but the overall solution itself. If you'd like to take a deeper dive into that, or even a deeper dive into the connectors as well, please don't hesitate to reach out and let us know, and we'll set up some time one-on-one to walk through that with you as well. But that being said, I think we've answered all. So I just wanted to say thank you for everybody, and thanks for sticking around for the whole thing. And we appreciate your time out of your busy schedule. So,
great. Yep. Thank you,
all right.
everyone. Appreciate
Thanks
it.
all. Have a good day.